So in this video I'm going to use these cubes which I drawn out in a previous tutorial as a guide to construct and draw some skulls in perspective. Okay, so I guess this is going to be another video where you get to laugh at me trying to draw digitally. If you are familiar with the content on the channel, you'll know that I normally just stick to pencil and paper, but today's an exception because I'm going to attempt to draw some skulls using these cubes which we had created in a previous tutorial where I covered various techniques for drawing in perspective. So that's a really useful video if you want to go check that out first and then come back to this. But yeah, that's the main purpose of this video, is to pretty much demonstrate how the cubes which I have created there can be taken further, and how simple boxes like this can act as a guide to construct and draw other more complex objects in perspective. So here we are going to be drawing skulls in each one of these, and you know, when I put out a tutorial that involves drawing boxes or something that might come across as a bit of a bland subject, I understand why it might not get as much views and attention as the more visually appealing stuff, but it's important to realise that something as simple as a cube can really help you to draw anything, and that goes for all of the basic forms like cylinders, cones and so on. And I'm just trying to use these cubes to help me get an idea of the angle that I'm drawing on and also the scale of the skull. And then for me there was also the challenge of trying to draw digitally, which is completely out of my comfort zone. I found it quite hard to actually look at the screen instead of looking at your hand drawing on paper, for instance, but I suppose that's something that you eventually get used to over time. I'd like to explore drawing digitally a bit more, especially for these videos. I think it looks a lot more presentable, but then again, I think it's quite rare to see artists drawing traditionally these days, and so I'd like to keep that and make that my main focus. But I'd like to be able to do both and transition for the purpose of these videos. But yeah, in terms of the actual skulls here, I'm kind of familiar with the anatomy of the skull already. I have a video on that if you want to go check that out and learn a bit more about that. Because I'm drawing these cubes in these boxes, they act as a guide, and you'll normally see me start to construct this from around the centre of the box. I start with the nasal bone, and then from there I build the rest whilst considering the perspective. So for example, with the eye sockets, you can easily recognise the perspective and also the angle of the skull through drawing them. And the skull is also important in itself because it's valuable for when it comes to drawing heads and faces, which I'll probably be covering on the channel eventually. And so yeah, as I'm drawing these skulls in these boxes, it's helping me keep track of the perspective. And as I start to work on the skulls that are further off into the distance, it also helps with scaling. If you're constructing these skulls in these boxes, you'll naturally be drawing them to that size. And so it's a really useful exercise to try drawing some cubes and then try to draw some more complex objects within them. Maybe start off with some simple objects that are more geometric so that you can easily judge where they go and fit within that cube, and then start to build that up and explore more complex objects like the skull and things like that. But this is pretty much the stuff that many artists consider when they are drawing freehand. Even though they might not directly draw in construction lines and construct these boxes, they are still visualizing them because it's such an easy way to keep track of the perspective when you are drawing anything. And in terms of the way that I have set up these cubes here, if you watch the previous tutorial where I covered the perspective techniques and constructed all of these, you'll know that each of these cubes are equal in dimension and we're drawn at specific angles. So if you want to get really accurate with this, that is one way to go about it, or you can just do this freehand, which I did a video on the Patreon page. It was actually a bonus video where I constructed some skulls, drawing them in pencil in some boxes that I had drawn out freehand. And so feel free to check that out if you'd like. But yeah, this is something that I just thought would be of value to you. Also, I'll be creating a study document alongside the video where I talked about constructing these boxes in perspective. So again, if you want to head over to Patreon, you can take a look at them. But yeah, the main purpose for this video was for me to show you how these simple boxes, although they might appear to be dull and boring to draw, they are incredibly useful, and when it comes to perspective, they are essential really. And so yeah, I'll let this play out to the end. Thank you for watching. I'll get on with making some more tutorials. Also, I need to practice drawing digitally, so that's what I'll do now. Thanks for watching.